Most of us feel safe in our daily routines. We trust the locks on our doors. We trust the route we drive home. We trust that when we are alone, we are actually alone. But what happens when that trust is broken? Tonight, I'm going to share 3 terrifying stories that allegedly happened to real people. Stories about night shifts that went wrong, road trips that led to nowhere, and the feeling of being watched in your own home. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't look behind you. Let's get into it. This story was sent in by a subscriber named Marcus from Ohio. I've always been a night owl, so when I saw a listing for a graveyard shift security guard at an old logistics warehouse, I applied immediately. The pay was surprisingly high, $30 an hour, just to sit in a booth and walk the perimeter once every 2 hours. It seemed like easy money. On my first night, the outgoing guard, a guy named Old Miller, didn't say much. He looked exhausted, pale, like he hadn't slept in weeks. He handed me a heavy ring of keys and a laminated sheet of paper. "Read this," Miller said, his voice trembling. "Don't ask questions. Just follow it to the letter." Before I could ask what he meant, he was gone. He practically ran to his car. I sat down in the booth, poured myself some coffee, and looked at the paper. It was titled, "Site Protocols Mandatory." I expected stuff like check the locks or call 911 in emergencies. Instead, I read this. Rule 1. Keep the main gate locked between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. Do not open it for anyone, even if they are wearing a police uniform. Rule 2. If you hear crying coming from the break room vending machine, do not investigate. Put on your headphones and play loud music until it stops. Rule 3. During your patrol, avoid the south wing corridor if the lights are flickering. If the lights are steady, you may pass. Rule 4. If you see a tall man in a gray suit standing in the middle of the warehouse floor, do not make eye contact. Turn around, walk back to the booth, and lock the door. I chuckled. Okay, Miller? Very funny, I thought. Hazing the new guy. Classic. I spent the first few hours watching Netflix on my phone. Nothing happened. It was boring. Around 2:15 a.m., I decided to do my first round. I grabbed my flashlight and headed into the warehouse. It was massive, silent. The only sound was the hum of the giant freezer units. I walked past the break room and I stopped. Faintly, from inside, I heard a sound, sobbing. It sounded like a child, a little girl, crying her eyes out. My skepticism vanished. My first instinct was to help. I took a step toward the break room door. My hand reached for the handle. Then I remembered Rule 2. Do not investigate. My heart was pounding. The crying got louder, turning into a wretched scream. Please, help me. It's dark. Every fiber of my being wanted to open that door. But Miller's pale face flashed in my mind. I backed away. I put my AirPods in blasted heavy metal music and finished my round shaking. When I looped back near the south wing, the lights were buzzing, flickering violently, strobe lights in the darkness. Rule 3. Avoid the south wing if lights are flickering. I didn't test it. I turned right around. I was power walking back to the safety of the security booth when I froze. In the center of the main aisle, about 50 feet away, stood a figure. A man in a gray suit. He was impossibly tall. His arms hung down too low, almost touching his knees. He wasn't moving. He was just facing away from me. My breath caught in my throat. I remembered Rule 4. Do not make eye contact. He started to turn, slowly. His neck cracked audibly in the silence. I didn't wait to see his face. I spun around and sprinted. I didn't care about the noise. I ran into the booth, slammed the door, and locked all 3 doors. I stared at the monitors. Camera 5 showed the main aisle, empty. Camera 6 showed the break room, empty. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Maybe I was hallucinating. Maybe it was the lack of sleep. Then my walkie-talkie buzzed. It had been silent all night. A voice came through. Not Miller's, not a child's. It was a deep, distorted voice that sounded like wet gravel. You didn't read rule number 5, Marcus. I grabbed the laminated paper. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. I scanned to the bottom. I had missed the last line because of a coffee stain. Rule 5. Always check the back seat of your car before you leave. I quit the next morning via email. I never went back for my paycheck. And to this day, I check my back seat every single time I get in my car. Sometimes, I swear I can still smell the faint scent of old, rotting fabric. This next story happened to a woman named Sarah in 2023. It's a reminder that sometimes technology isn't just annoying, it's a warning. I live alone in a studio apartment in downtown Seattle. It's a secure building key fob entry, cameras in the lobby. I always felt safe. One Friday night, I was just relaxing. I had a glass of wine, some takeout, and I was listening to a true crime podcast on my Bluetooth speaker. Around 11 p.m., the audio cut out, silence. Then the speaker made that distinctive bloop noise, the sound it makes when a new device connects. I frowned. I looked at my phone. My Bluetooth was still on, but it wasn't connected to the speaker anymore. I tried to reconnect, but I got an error message. Speaker is busy. Weird, I thought. Maybe my neighbor downstairs accidentally paired with it. Thin walls, right? Then music started playing. But it wasn't music. It was a recording. It was a recording of me. It was my voice from earlier that day. I could hear myself talking on the phone to my mom. Yeah, I'll be home all night, alone, Mom. Don't worry. My blood ran cold. That conversation happened 3 hours ago. Someone had recorded it. I grabbed the speaker to turn it off, but the buttons weren't working. The audio switched. Now it was a live feed. I could hear breathing, heavy, wet breathing, and the sound of fabric rustling. The sound was crystal clear. It wasn't coming from next door. Bluetooth range is short, 30 feet, max. The breathing sounded like it was coming from inside my apartment. I stood up, grabbing a kitchen knife. My eyes scanned the small studio, the closet, the bathroom. The speaker crackled again. A voice whispered, "You look pretty in that red shirt." I was wearing a red shirt. I didn't scream. I didn't check the closet. I ran out the front door, down the hall, and pounded on my neighbor's door until he opened up. We called the police. When the cops arrived, they swept my apartment. They found him. A man had been living in the crawl space above my bathroom ceiling. He had drilled a tiny hole through the vent to watch me. He had hacked into my speaker to taunt me. The scariest part, when they searched his phone, they found videos of me sleeping, not just from that night, but from every night for the past 2 weeks. I moved out the next day, but I still can't sleep in a room with a Bluetooth speaker. Our final story comes from a long-haul trucker who wishes to remain anonymous. This happened on a lonely stretch of highway in Nevada. I've been driving trucks for 20 years. I've seen everything: drunk drivers, accidents, weird lights in the sky. But nothing scared me enough to make me consider retiring. Until last November. I was hauling a load to Reno. It was about 3 a.m. I was on a 2-lane back road because the main interstate was closed for construction. Desolate doesn't begin to describe it. No streetlights, no moon, just my headlights cutting through the black void. I hadn't seen another car for 2 hours. Then I saw something in the distance. In the middle of the road, standing right on the yellow line, was a person. I slammed on the air brakes. The rig screeched to a halt about 50 yards away from them. I blasted my horn. Nothing. They just stood there. It looked like a woman in a white dress, her back to me. I grabbed my tire iron and cracked the door open. "Hey, you okay?" I yelled. She didn't move. But then something else caught my attention. To the left of the road, in the desert brush, I saw eyes. Not animal eyes. Reflected in my headlights were dozens of pairs of human eyes, crouching in the darkness, watching. The woman in the road suddenly snapped her head back. Not turned, snapped, like her neck was broken. She was smiling. A smile that was too wide for a human face. She let out a shriek. It sounded like a fox, screaming, but deeper. At that exact moment, the figures in the bushes stood up. There were at least 10 of them, pale, naked, emaciated figures, running toward the truck on all fours. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and floored the gas. I didn't care if I hit the woman. I just needed to go. But when the truck surged forward, she was gone, vanished. As I picked up speed, I checked my side mirrors. The pale figures were chasing the truck, and they were keeping up. I was doing 60 miles per hour, and they were running alongside the trailer, clawing at the metal. I pushed the rig to 80. The engine roared. Finally, they started to fall behind, fading into the dust. I didn't stop until I reached a truck stop in Reno 2 hours later. When I got out, I checked the side of my trailer. There were deep scratches in the steel, and in the door handle of the cab, a single, long human fingernail was wedged in the lock. I don't take back roads anymore. I stick to the interstate, even if it adds 5 hours to my trip. Those were 3 stories that remind us that the world is a much darker place than we like to admit. Which one scared you the most? The warehouse rules, the hacker in the vents, or the things in the desert? Let me know in the comments below. If you survived this video, please leave a like. It helps the channel grow. And remember, check your back seat, check your vents, and never ever stop on a dark road at night. Sleep well.